Hello and welcome back to the Nerva Beacon podcast, where myself, Cymru Nerd Cave, aka Glenn, takes myself and my co-presenter Leigh on a bit of an adventure through Doctor Who, classic and new. We don't discriminate. I've heard on Twitter that people are discriminating and gatekeeping it. It's like, what's your game? What's your game? But we don't do that here. We just like Doctor Who in all its forms, don't we, Leigh?
Yep.
How are you today?
I'm great. Had Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, I don't do Mother's Day, so I wouldn't know.
I don't, but my daughter does.
Well, fucking damn right she does.
Yeah.
You deserve it after what she's done.
Yeah, she made us a cake out of gin.
Yeah, well, it does look nice, that red apple cake, yeah?
Yeah.
That did look, was it like a Dutch apple cake or something, was it?
It's a Delia recipe.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but you swap half of the milk for gin, so...
Of course you did. No wonder you liked it. Queen Mother. But other than that, you had a nice Mother's Day?
Yeah.
Got stuff from them, did you?
Yeah, loads of candles, which I can never ever use because I can't use scented candles.
Oh, okay. Why not?
Because the oils have been break my face out.
Oh, right, okay. Fair enough. Well, nice thought, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't have kids. And neither do I want them. You've had them all for me, you see.
Yep.
Everyone who has kids, it's like, you're doing my job for me. I don't fucking want them. I don't like kids. Sorry, get them out. I've got a cat. There you are, I'll do.
You didn't like the cat either?
Cat, I am perfectly fine with the cat. As long as it's not what he did yesterday, which is threw up in my bedroom and then had a shit.
Oh, lovely.
It's like, oh, you're just purging, are you? But there we go. Enough of my cat's lavatorial habits. I don't think anybody wants to hear that. We are here today to complete our second part of our two-parter on the Fourth Doctor, because obviously he has three very distinct eras, and one of them's a massive one, and the other two aren't so big. What we didn't do, what we neglected to do, is actually talk about the Fourth Doctor's character in any sort of detail.
Yeah.
Basically, he, I would say, along with 6 and 12, is possibly the most alien of all the Doctors.
Yeah.
In as much as you can't judge him by human standards, and there's 2 or 3 instances in the show where he basically says, I'm an alien, you can't judge me by your standards. One of them is when he basically casually throws Lawrence's body out of the way in Pyramid of Mars.
Yeah.
And Sarah's like, dude, that's a person. And he's saying, well, number 1, big picture. Number 2, I'm an alien, you can't judge me by your standards.
Yeah.
I guess that's true, because obviously his race is billions of years old. And,
he's also very charismatic as well, this one. Most of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to compare him to any sort of modern New Who Doctor, I suppose 10 would be the closest.
Yeah. It's the grin. It's that cheeky, toothy smile. It's brilliant.
Oh, yes. You've got that. You've got, like you say, the charisma. He's generally the most intelligent person in the room and isn't afraid to say it.
No.
He needs stopping sometimes.
Uh-huh.
The Fourth and 10, this applies to both of them. And they don't the social graces escape them.
Mm-hmm.
There's also,
as well. No social graces whatsoever.
Exactly. And, you've got the more human Doctors, like sort of 8, 5, 3, 11. And I'm guessing 13 as well will be in that mould.
Mm-hmm.
I would think, I've said for a little while, I reckon 13, the closest to her, is going to be 5.
Mm-hmm.
I get definite vibes of the 5th Doctor from every picture I've ever seen of the 13th Doctor, so we'll see on her. But 4 was definitely not that, because obviously 3 kind of had Stockholm Syndrome by the end of his tenure. He was happy to stay with UNIT. And the first thing that 4 does is leave.
Yes, he runs out of there straight away.
And doesn't like being called back to anything.
Yeah, we saw that in the Zygon story.
Yeah, when you saw it in any story where the Time Lords called him back, so Genesis of the Daleks, Brain Morbius, that kind of thing.
No, I just want to be left alone and do adventure and see things.
Yeah, which is sort of the exact opposite of some of them, because obviously the second Doctor would do, I mean, obviously this is retroactive, but he would do loads of jobs for the CIA.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, Six would do that as well.
Mm.
But he valued his freedom, and I guess, you've got certain Doctors who do that as well. Certainly Six valued his freedom.
Yeah.
Didn't like the Time Lords interfering in his life, and Four was definitely like that. But he was an eccentric, he was bohemian, is a word that gets thrown around a lot. He was Tom Baker.
Yeah. I think it's just his clothes. I mean, if you look back at them, see the way he dressed with these Byronic, basically, more like a bloody Lord Byron than anybody else.
Well, he was based on a picture, the painting of Aristide Bruant by Toulouse-Lautrec. There's a very famous picture of Ambassadeur, it's called. And it's this picture of this guy in a big overcoat and a big floppy hat and a long scarf. And that was the picture that they said that's what he wants to look like. And the great thing about it is they wanted a scarf, but they didn't want the scarf as big as it was. They gave loads of wool to this costume designer.
Yeah.
And said, knit us a long scarf. And she took that to mean, use all the wool to knit a long scarf. So she
stitched both of them together as well. The stunt scarf and the real scarf.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was absolutely ridiculously long at one point.
Yeah.
And apparently Tom Baker had zero regard for it. He loved it. He loved the fact that he had it, but he showed no regard for it. So it kept getting kicked about, and in a kind of weird way that makes the Doctor better with the scarf. Because it's just something he has, rather than, I mustn't get this dirty. Yeah. He didn't care.
He used to trip people up with.
He used it as a decoy, and got half of it shot off, in certain stories. Same with the hat as well. The hat would always change. But they did refine his look as well, because obviously when he first started, he was complete, sort of almost cosmic hobo again.
Yeah.
So he had this ratty old velvet jacket, which was completely an affront to the Third Doctor.
No, the Third Doctor was absolutely immaculate in his clothes.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he was a clothes horse, a dandy. And then Fourth didn't care. He couldn't care. He had better things to think about than that. And he had this great, I love his cardie, his green and brown cardie that he had, green, brown and cream cardie.
Yeah.
And a little ascot he had as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like sort of corduroy trousers and boots and stuff. So yeah, they refined it over time. So it didn't quite become the costume that it would when JNT took over, but he sort of became a bit more Edwardian adventurer.
Yeah.
Maybe not as dapper as the Eighth Doctor, but certainly getting on for it. Mm. But no, it's that look is iconic. And it was possibly, I wouldn't say it's the first Doctor who looked iconic, but it was because of the tenure that he had and because he was shown on PBS in America. A lot of people associate that look with the Doctor.
Yeah. It's first
and the long scarf.
First thing anybody thinks of when you think of Doctor Who, like, scarf.
Teeth and curls. Mm. Yeah. Especially in America, like we say. And he's been on so many TV shows, parodied, like The Simpsons and Family Guy and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. So yeah, it's the iconic look of the Fourth Doctor. A lot of people don't sort of mention is that he was very quick to anger as well.
Yeah, very.
So, well, he got very angry. I mean, he was sort of opposed to violence in all its forms, but if you watch like The Seeds of Doom, he's super violent in that.
Well, he had to be, really.
Absolutely. Well, he's sort of like more James Bond than anything else, isn't he, in that one? Especially with people like Scorby, who would basically just kill you as soon as they look at you. So he was a bit more sort of action hero, a bit angrier. But he would get angry with people who would stand against him, or even sort of companions who weren't getting it.
Yeah, I remember.
Again, a bit like 10th.
Yes, he snapped a lot.
He used to snap a lot. Well, that's the whole thing with Donna, isn't it? You need someone there to stop you. Or the quiet fury of the Time Lord. I can see the Fourth Doctor doing to the Family of Blood what the 10th Doctor did.
Yes.
Not many other Doctors, I think.
No.
They would have beaten them, but I don't think they'd have done that.
I'm not sure if 11 would have.
11 wouldn't have. 11 would have obliterated them. He would have done probably much worse.
Yeah.
Because I would be more scared of him than 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's, like I say, a bit more like 2. And he had no mercy whatsoever, did 2.
Cheeky, bouncy, seemingly happy, but underneath there's a lot of rage hiding there.
Absolutely.
Well, look what he did to Captain Runaway.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, look what he did to, I can't remember his name, but Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Is it Silas or something like that?
Yes.
David Bradley's character. Anyway, look what he did to him. He killed him. He straight up killed him. And he put him in a situation where he couldn't get out of. So, yeah, but like 4 could be just as ruthless.
Yes.
But it tended to be, he would give him a chance. And he would say, look, I'm giving you a chance. Stop this.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say no. I said, well, there's nothing I can do about it then. Sorry.
That's the thing about that's the overarching theme I've noticed throughout all the Doctors, really. They're a good person, but they're not nice. Especially when it comes to people that are threatening them and their friends.
Yeah, he would give you a chance. He would say, look, I'll help you. I'll try and help you if I can. But you continue on this path and something bad will happen. That's all I'm saying. And they would say, well, sod you, Doctor. I'll do what I want. But fair enough. There you go. What happens now is your fault.
Yep.
It's nothing to do with me. I'm just... It's that whole Batman thing, and Batman Begins with Ra's al Ghul, where it says, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like what the Doctor's like a lot of the time, especially the 4th Doctor. And he came up against some really dark enemies to begin with.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much in the period we're going to talk about, because we're going to move on from the 4th Doctor's character now, and talk about what happened after Philip Hinchcliffe was... Well, let's just say he left the show, shall we? He was asked to leave the show. And Graham Williams took over. They're not for as long as people think. He was only there for 2 seasons. For season 16, and he was there for season 17. He left actually midway through season 16, if I remember correctly. He left quite earlier than he should have done, because basically Tom Baker at that point had been in the part a long time. And was basically very difficult to work with. He thought he knew better. One of the great instances of that I've heard is that during the filming of one story, he took a glass of water and he listened to the water before he drank it. And the director said, "What you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm a Time Lord from the planet of Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous. That's what we do when we drink a glass of water. Do you not know that?" It's like, oh no. But anyway, yes, at this point he was sort of just at the start of his, not megalomania, it's just that he knew what he wanted to do and he'd been playing the part longer than a lot of directors had been directing it and thought he knew best. It's going to happen in any actor that stays in a role too long.
Yeah.
And it had definitely happened to Tom Baker. But Graham Williams, like I say, came in 1978-79 first. And this is known as the Key to Time season.
Yeah. Stuff absolutely brilliantly for the first 3 stories. Then after that, it just goes down.
I would say the first 4, because I really like Android Tatara.
Mm.
I think Power of Kroll and Armageddon Factor are maybe 2 stories too much.
Yes.
It's basically, if you've never heard of the Key to Time, then why are you listening to this podcast? Because even if you're a new Who fan and you've never watched any classic series, you will have heard of the Key to Time. I guarantee you will have heard of it. But yeah, it's one long story arc. Imagine that. A whole season with a one long story arc. It encompasses 6 separate but linked stories, and it's referred to as the Key to Time because that's what the Doctor is searching for throughout the whole of the season. Ironically... Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just saying he's been sent on this quest by the White Guardian that stopped the Black Guardian from getting hold of the Key to Time.
Or is it the White Guardian?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, basically the conceit is that the Key to Time, you've got to pop up in each story. The Doctor's got to find and collect each bit. Ironically, that's a better story arc than Torchwood and Bad Wolf.
Yes.
Bad Wolf, maybe not so much. Bad Wolf, I'll accept it. Torchwood was just... We'll talk about when we go to the 10th Doctor, but it was just... Let's just mention Torchwood 5 times in each episode. And that's a story arc, apparently. No, it isn't. Anyway, but the key to time definitely was. And as you say, the Doctor is travelling in space with no companion, except for K9, because Leela had left at the end of the last season, and suddenly the TARDIS stops, and he's ushered outside, and the White Guardian says, "Oi, you, get me the key to time. The universe needs to be reset." Why? Because it does. That's literally the only reason he's told.
Funnily enough, they asked Elizabeth Sladen to come back and left, and she said no. That's how we ended up with Romana.
And that's no bad thing. Especially the first Romana, who is plucked out of the Time Lord Academy, thrust into the TARDIS and said, help the Doctor. Now, it turns out that the Time Lords didn't actually ask her to do that. It was the white guy, well, it was the black guy masquerading as one of the Time Lords. Mm-hmm. But she is 150 or something by this point, I think she says.
Yeah, 150, very young.
She's very young for a Time Lord. Basically just out of the Academy, but brilliant. She's supposed to be the best of the best. Mm-hmm. And she's played by the absolutely lovely and amazing Mary Tam.
Yeah, very pretty lady.
She was, and good actress as well.
Yeah. It
has to be said. Because she had to be the Doctor's equal. In fact, she had to be slightly better than the Doctor. Mm-hmm. Which is something I always liked, the fact that, he scraped along with the pass, or 60%, I think she says. Mm-hmm. And she aced all her tests in the Time Lord Academy, whereas he barely scraped through, she points out. And he's not very happy about the fact that she points that out. But she's given to him as an assistant, and off they go, searching around the universe for the key to time. And Romana, we'll talk about the first Romana very briefly. A bit naive.
Mm-hmm. Because academic learning doesn't actually necessarily mean outside learning.
Well, she's got the book smarts, doesn't she? But not necessarily, she's got no street smarts at all, because she's never been off Gallifrey. No. And I think it's fair to say she and the Doctor have an antagonistic relationship in the first story.
Yeah, that's true.
That goes away really quickly. Because I think there is... the thing is, with both Romanas, there is chemistry there.
Mm-hmm. And
especially
they start understanding each other a bit more. He realises, she's just a kid, really. Whereas he's like 751 at this point. Yeah.
I think the other thing is that they didn't write her as too snotty and horrible. Because they could have had her just questioning the Doctor completely all the time. I think the good thing is at the end of the first story, she's basically, all right, I know a lot, and you're not always going to get everything right, but you do this thing all the time. Mm-hmm. I should really trust you. And 9 times out of 10, I think she does. Sometimes she'll sort of question his methods, but she doesn't distrust that he knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Which is, a good thing, because that could have been written like Adric.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Whereas you get this brilliant character who just never listens to the Doctor.
And that was his downfall eventually, but we'll get to that next time.
Oh, we definitely will. I guess Romana is kind of like what Liz Shaw would have been had she been in the TARDIS.
Yes.
Because obviously Liz never really... she never entered the TARDIS, did she?
No, I don't think she just believed it was the Doctor's funny little box that had nothing inside it.
Yeah. But no, Romana was great, especially sort of Romana 1, who, controversial opinion, Romana 1's my favourite Romana. Mm-hmm. I love Romana 2 because she's my first.
Yeah.
She was my first companion. She's the first one I remember. In City of Death, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. But my favourite Romana is Mary Tam. She did come back, sadly she passed away. But she did come back before then and recorded a whole season of Doctor Who episodes of Big Finish.
Yeah.
Which are really, really good as well. It's a damn shame she didn't get to record any more of them. Yeah. Because it was obvious that chemistry between her and Tom Baker was still there. But yeah, she's absolutely brilliant. We'll go through some of the stories in this season. So first off, you've got the Rebos operation. What's your opinion of the Rebos operation there?
Well, one thing I liked about it was set in the medieval period.
Basically, it's one of those pseudo-historical, but it's not historical because it's on an alien planet, but it kind of looks historical, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. A bit like Star Trek when they go to a planet that they're not supposed to go to because of the Prime Directive.
Yeah, I was watching one of those videos, the Nazi one. I liked all the iconography of it, and they were really efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was a sociologist, and that's what I wanted. It's like, hang on a minute, no, yeah, but Nazis. But yeah, it's exactly. Or Peladon is another one. It's kind of like Peladon, isn't it?
That's what I was thinking as well, Peladon. Also the Sontarans. No, not the Sontaran experiment. That the other first Sontaran story.
Oh, Time Warrior.
Time Warrior, yeah. Like that as well. That one was set on Earth, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was set in the early Middle Ages, I think, Dark Ages.
Yeah, with .com.
Yeah, and that bloke out of Boom.
Yeah.
David Dacre, I think his name is. But yeah, but I love personally, I'm a big fan of the Rebus operation because it's just a con job.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sort of big aliens. The stakes are pretty small for what it is. It's, the bad guy is a fucking brilliant bad guy. I love the Grafin Decay.
Yeah.
Because he's an asshole. There's just nothing redeeming about him whatsoever. And he's just he's one of these dudes. He's like, I tell you who he is, he's Donald Trump.
Oh, bloody hell.
He's this loudmouth asshole who gets people to do his dirty work for him. He's only interested in money and profit, and he's got a chip on his shoulder because everyone thinks he's a dick. And he's going to cause trouble for everyone. He's not going to conquer the galaxy because he's shit at everything. He's rubbish. But he's going to cause people a lot of shit in the universe.
Yeah.
And he's played brilliantly. I love that guy. The guy who plays him. I'm going to bring that up in a second. But it was his dog, the guy who played him, and it was, what's his name? Paul something. Paul Seed. It was Paul Seed's dog that bit Tom Baker on the lip.
Yeah, that's why they had the console accident so they could cover it up. Yeah,
because people haven't seen this. Half of the stories in the Key to Time season, the Doctor's got a plaster over his lip, and the reason he's got it is because Tom Baker was in the pub with Paul Seed and Paul Seed's dog, and Tom Baker went to pet the dog, and the dog bit him.
Easily done.
Yeah, because Tom Baker invariably at lunchtime was in the pub. It has to be said. But
we had a dog like that. She used to jump up, very nippy, and she used to like jump up and bite you on the lips because she was trying to kiss you. She was trying to kiss like we do, and she would invariably end up biting you on the lips or the nose.
Oh, I can't be doing with that. But yeah, so obviously it's basically a con job for the Grafin Decay wants to buy this planet called Rebos, and he basically doesn't know that it's not for sale, and he's being contacted by a con man called Garon, played brilliantly by Ian Cuthbertson, who is basically saying, it's kind of like one of them Lex Luthor real estate con jobs. He's just saying, yeah, this planet's for sale. Absolutely, yeah, just give us this money and it's yours. And it's nobody. It's not his to give. He's just conning him out of his money.
Like London Bridge Con.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah. Ian Cuthbertson was in Campion with Peter Davison as well.
He was in Superground as well.
Yeah, Superground. But yeah, he played right bad bastard in Campion as well.
Yeah, well, he was the Scunner Campbell in Superground, wasn't he? So he seems to play these bad guys, but in this, he's really just a lovable rogue.
Yeah.
He's not really a bad guy. He's just a con man.
Handsome type.
And you get the feeling that most of the people he cons are people like the Grafin Decay, so complete assholes who kind of deserve it.
Yeah.
They kind of got it coming. But it's a great story. very little to do with the actual key to time. Very little. You've got the MacGuffin that everyone's after is part of the key to time. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it doesn't intrude on the story, I don't think. It's got this real good little thing as well about Binro, who is a heretic. Mm-hmm. Because the planet's kind of backwards.
Yeah.
They still believe that everything travels round the planet. Mm-hmm. Like, sort of like Galileo. So it's kind of like Galileo who's being made destitute and he's Binro the idiot and all this kind of thing. But it turns out that one of the characters, basically Garon's assistant called Unstoff, basically tells Binro, no, you're absolutely right. Everything goes round suns and stars, and there's a whole universe of stuff out there. And sadly, Binro gets killed, but he gets killed in the knowledge that he was right.
Yeah.
It's a really nice. It's a B story, a B plot that doesn't need to be there, mm-hmm. but it's nice that it is.
Yeah, it just kind of rounds the whole thing out a little bit.
Yeah, I think he gets killed by the Graphene Decay as well. Mm-hmm. So it just makes you hate him even more. But anyway, it's a really, really good story. It gives you another great example of the Doctor killing someone who deserves... Because he basically kills the Graphene Decay. Mm-hmm. He blows him up.
Yeah.
So he kind of deserves it.
Yeah, he swaps the... I can't remember what the metal's called. Jethric.
Yeah.
Yeah, he swaps that for explosives.
Yeah. And the Graph walks off saying, I'm the master of the universe, I'm going to rule everything, blah, 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 blah. Bang. He just fucking absolutely deserves everything he gets. He's just an asshole. But yeah, he's basically, like I say, Donald Trump. The next story after that is hailed as a classic by some, and then some people really seem to hate it. And it's one by some bloke called Douglas Adams, who he never amounted to much, to be fair. Mm. It's The Pirate Planet.
Yeah. I
really love it. What do you think of it?
It's... well, the first time I watched it, I didn't really like it, but I thought it was a bit too slow.
Mm.
But as I got into it, it's got better and better. I hated the captain.
I like the captain.
Yeah, horrible character.
Mr. Fibuli!
Looks good though.
By the great demon bird! See, I quite like characters like that. They're so overblown and overwritten.
Yeah.
And then you realise that, I think through the course, because obviously the captain he's working for Xansia.
Yeah.
Against his will, kind of, almost.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of it, they basically say, yeah, he's playing a character all this time. Mm-hmm. Chances are he probably wasn't like that. And he just made this character so he could work against Xansia undercover. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah, so this one, they go to a planet called Califrax, where they reckon they'll find the next part of the key to time. But it turns out that they actually land on the wrong planet, supposedly. And it's not Califrax. Califrax is a boring ice planet with nothing living on it. And they materialise on this planet which has houses and people and seems to be in quite great prosperity. Mm-hmm. But they're a bit odd because they have an unknown purpose. They're a bit listless. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that the whole planet they're on materialises over other planets, destroy those planets, and then mine them for all their minerals. Well, I mean, it's only an idea that Douglas Adams could come up with.
Yeah, came back up with that kind of idea before with the Slovenes, but not. Yeah,
it's not dissimilar because obviously the Slovenes go to planets, instigate war, and then when everyone blows themselves up, they basically nick all the minerals off the planet, don't they?
It's a bit like Star Wars as well, the Death Star.
Yeah?
The new... Well, just destroying planets, basically. It's amazing how Doctor Who actually links into every other bloody sci-fi show out there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's that whole, either they homage it, or they copy it, or you've got someone like Douglas Adams who takes very, very sort of high-concept sci-fi. Because this is quite a high-concept sci-fi idea.
Yeah.
This isn't just something that any old idiot could come up with. It's very clever. And especially seen as the fact that the whole reason they're doing this is just to keep some old crone alive. That's the only reason. There's no big purpose to it. To destroy the universe. They're basically just going around destroying planets and killing millions of people.
Just so this woman can stay alive.
Yeah, this old bitch just can have time damned.
Yeah.
And eventually reconstitute herself. And she's forcing everyone into it.
It's similar to Stardust by Neil Gaiman, where the witches they live off stars to stay alive.
Yeah, it's even like the God Emperor in Warhammer 40k. Because obviously, something like 10,000 souls a day are killed just so that he can stay alive in his throne. Mm-hmm. And they're not even sure whether he's actually alive. So it's that kind of, that kind of thing. And you've got things like the Mentiads, you've got psychics in it, you've got, like say, Mr. Fibuli, who's basically like the aide de camp of the captain. And he's brilliantly played as well, is Mr. Fibuli by Andrew Robertson. Because he's got that, he kind of looks like the guy from the Buggles. He kind of looks like Trevor Horn, but he's really, really good at his job, and he gets threatened a lot, and he sort of puts up with it. And the pirate captain has his fucking poly parrot thing that he uses to kill people, and he always threatens to kill Mr. Fibuli with it, but he never does. He's great, but like I say, it is all a character. It's not him at all.
I love that parrot. It kind of reminds us of the parrot, the owl in Clash of the Titans.
Or Bubo.
Bubo, yes.
Yeah, Bubo the owl, who isn't R2-D2 at all.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Nothing like him. Not that K9's R2-D2 either, obviously. But yeah, to be fair, K9 and the Polly Parrot have a great fight. Mm. And it's really, and he kills him as well. Like a foxhound would, because that's basically what he is, a foxhound, isn't he? It's K9, or a terrier at the very least, a West Island Terrier, something like that. But,
the other one, the black Scotty dog.
Yes.
Big long face.
Yes. But yeah, it turns out that Califrax itself is a part of the key to time. Because reasons. And they turn that planet. And then it says, oh, well, you can live on the hollow planet. And it's like, no, that's not how that would work. To be fair, that's the only bit of it I don't like, is where they just say, oh, well, you can just stay here on this planet, people, and just live on this hollowed out planet. That's like, well, that's not going to work, and that's not going to be sustainable. That planet's going to fall in on itself as soon as they leave.
Yep.
But, hey, look, don't question it. So they don't question it. Next up is my personal favourite of all these stories. I love this one.
Yeah, I love this.
Even though it's 2 stories.
Yeah, it seems to be two episodes really starts off as Hinchcliffian era.
Yeah.
Stones killing people, and then...
Or Nigel Neal, even.
Yeah.
They're sort of like proper Quatermassy stones of stone tape sort of thing, isn't it?
Yes.
And then 2 of them are just batshit mental courtroom drama. So it's the 3rd segment that they're looking for now, and they arrive in Cornwall, and they meet one of my favourite characters in all of Doctor Who, which is Amelia Rumford.
Yes, she's brilliant.
She's brilliant, played by the brilliant Beatrix Lehman, who died not long after filming.
Oh.
Which is but I mean, she was super old by that point. To be fair, don't feel that she didn't have a full life. She had a very full life. She was 76. And she, I was reading a bit about Beatrix Lehman the other week, actually. She had a really interesting life. She was born in, I think it was London, or Buckinghamshire. She was born in Buckinghamshire, but she became an actress at quite a young age. She was the 3rd of 4 children of Rudolph Chambers Lehman, who was an author and a publisher. Her great uncle was Henry Lehman, the artist, and her brother was publisher John Lehman, and one of her older sisters was Rosamond Lehman. So she came from very good stock. And like I say, she became an actress really young. She was she trained at RADA. She was in the production of The Way of the World in 1924. And she was one of the pioneers of films and television. She was a very early actress in that kind of thing. And she hobnobbed with a lot of American high society.
Yeah.
And had relationships with a lot of ladies in high society. She was...
she was in the crap version of The Cat and the Canary, sadly.
She was. But like I say, she was in a lot of good things as well. She was really quite famous. She was...
Old, I love that.
Yes. She's great. She was brilliant. And like I say, she popped up in this. I didn't know any of that when I first saw this. I just thought, who is that? She's wonderful. Because she plays this batty old professor who is... and I've been taught by people like this. People are just so into the subject that they're into that they're a bit scatty and they don't really sort of conform to any sort of social graces or anything. But she's great. And she lives with this woman called Vivian Fay. And I don't know about you, but I get a definite they're in a relationship sort of a feel.
Yeah.
They can't say it because it's 1979 kids' tea time.
Yeah.
But they're in a relationship, aren't they?
Yes, definitely.
Because, this is my friend Vivian. And Vivian, clearly lesbian, right?
Well, him kind of gives her away. That's not quite human.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, I think it's not said, it's never said, it's never really alluded to as such. But on the other hand, it's perfectly obvious that Vivian and Professor Rumford are in a relationship.
Yeah.
Which is great. But it's all to do with standing stones and druids and things like that. So there's a druidic sect that worships the Kiliak, which is the druidic goddess of war and magic. Even though the Doctor says, no, it isn't. It's all made up by some dude. Which is true. I mean, I used to know someone who was actually a druid. And nothing that you think to do with druidism is true. Mm-hmm. It's exceedingly dull. And it's all to do with times of the year, and they're basically just glorified weathermen.
Yeah.
Druids. But that's not a good story. A good story is that they all commit human sacrifice and stuff like that.
Druids never actually really did in this country.
No, human sacrifice never really a thing over here. But it suited Julius Caesar to say that they did.
Yeah.
Which is where most of that comes from.
Yeah, well, he needed a reason to... Well, not that he really needed a reason, but he needed a reason to come over here and tame the people and just take over the country.
Civilise us.
Yeah.
He needs to civilise us. But anyway, the Doctor... There's a massive red herring in it, which is De Vries.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just a massive, complete red herring in the whole thing. It's nothing to do with the Druids, it's nothing to do with any of that, but it is to do with the Standing Stones, because the Standing Stones are aliens who feed off hemoglobin. Mm-hmm. There's a really nasty bit where they actually stove De Vries and his secretary's heads in.
Uh-huh.
And it's quite nasty, actually, because you see a body lying there. You don't see the head stuffed in, obviously, but you do see his secretary's body lying there, I think.
That bit didn't scare me when I was a kid, when I first saw this story, but the bit where the stones kill the people in the tent, that was the bit that terrified me, and I was worried about going camping again after that.
It was the woman off Coro who used to go out with Mike Baldwin, wasn't it?
Mm, yeah.
It was her. And yeah, because she touches it and her hand disappears. It goes to a skeleton, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was the bit that absolutely bloody terrified me.
Also, what are they doing in that tent? They're fucking in that tent, right?
Yeah, that's what you go camping with your boyfriend to do.
Yeah, but you don't. Not for kids. I mean, you don't make it bloody obvious that's what they're doing. But anyway, it's great. I love it. So that's the first part of the story is them trying to work out this Standing Stones mystery, and then it goes batshit towards the end of episode 2, where Romana gets transported to a ship in hyperspace, which turns out is a prison ship, and Vivian is part of the prison convoy, and they then switch to a massive courtroom drama because they open They open a cell and 2 electronic beings come out and try them for basically letting out Vivian, even though they didn't. But it turns into, it's a weird story at that point. It just, because like I say, it just turns into this massive courtroom drama with all legalese being bandied about. Meanwhile, Amelia's trying to get this dimensional door opener working with K9, because K9 gets a lot to do in this episode, actually.
Yeah. Unusually for him.
Yeah, well, that was part of the brief that Graham Williams was given, wasn't it? Get K9 in more and get more humour and fantasy in it. But it's, don't get me wrong, it's a great story. It's a brilliant story, even though it goes all kinds of weird batshit at the end. It's by a guy called David Fisher, who would have come back and done another one, but he couldn't. We'll whip through these ones a bit quicker now. So you've got the Androids of Tara, which is basically David Fisher again wrote this, but he wrote it basically like The Prisoner of Zenda.
Yes, it's, definitely. This one felt more like before on Saturday mornings before Going Live and that came on, they used to show Robin Hood and things.
Flashing Blade.
Flashing Blade, yeah, that's what this one reminded me of.
It feels a bit like Sunday Afternoon, the Sunday Classic, which ironically is what Barry Letts used to produce. But yeah, it's definitely like that. It's got Peter Jeffrey being all good as the bad guy. And it's all to do with swapping people out for other people and androids and mistaken identity, and it's great. I love it. It's really, really good.
And Mary Tam gets a lot to do in this one because she's playing
she gets
4 people.
Yeah. She gets loads of sadly she wasn't paid for 4 people's wages, but yeah, she gets loads to do. And it's great because she really gets to sort of spread her wings dramatically and acts a lot. It's brilliant. It's a really long story. It feels like a long story. It's only 4 parts, but it feels like there's a lot there.
Yeah.
But it's one of these things where you got this weird courtroom drama beforehand, and then you got this sort of romantic fantasy almost.
Yeah.
And it just shows the best of Doctor Who because it can be anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very good. I do like it a lot, Androids of Tara. I used to have the book when I was a kid, the Target book. So I'm more familiar with that than the series itself, because it's one of those things where, because you had the Target book, I could read it and then reread it.
Yeah.
I just
doesn't look like Tom Baker.
They never do. They never bloody do, but never mind. But yeah, Androids of Tara, I really love it. Do you love it?
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. One that I don't really love is next, and it's The Power of Kroll.
No, this one's shit.
Robert Holmes was responsible for some of the best stories in Doctor Who. He's also responsible for some of the worst.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. It doesn't make sense. Basically, they arrive on a moon searching for the penultimate segment of the key to time, and they find themselves caught in the middle of a dispute between the crew of a methane refinery and the natives. So it's all environmental. They're called Swampies. And the Swampies are saying, "You disturbed our god, who is Kroll?" And they're like, "Fuck Kroll, he doesn't exist." And it turns out Kroll does exist, but he isn't a god. He's effectively Cthulhu. Kind of. He surfaces to feed every few centuries. It's a source of the abnormally large amount of methane, because basically he's farting. So yeah, it used to be normal size. It ingested the 5th segment of the key to time, and then that made it grow and mutated it to basically like Godzilla.
Yeah.
And that's when he became a godlike figure to the Swampies and now their descendants. So it's like a pseudo-environmental. It's got elements of like Godzilla and definitely Cthulhu. It's got a bit of Cthulhu mythology in there. I don't know. It's just something about it just doesn't fit. I think the Swampies look weird and the costumes are terrible.
Running out of money at this point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, they did that all the time. Holmes didn't like it. He said it was his least favourite. He said he never should have written a giant monster story because the BBC at that point just couldn't do it.
And this John Nathan Turner started coming into it.
Yes. And it's also got John Leeson in a jerkin. because John Leeson is... K9's not in it, but John Leeson is. He's got like Philip Maddox back in it as well, and Glyn Owen, who was in Howard's Way, in it as well. It's not great, if I'm being honest. And to be fair, the next story isn't brilliant either. It's the Armageddon Factor. It's the final serial of The Key to Time, and it's 6 parts. I think it was the last 6-parter ever.
Yeah.
And that's for good reason, because 6-parters are just...
Too long.
Too long. Yep, absolutely. It's just too long. And this is all to do with the futility of war. So they arrive on Atrios, which is at war, and has been at war for years. And it's all to do with a planet's deserted, save for a giant computer, Mentalist, which is controlling the war. And that the actual opponent is a planet called the Planet of Evil, ruled by the Shadow, who is an agent of the Black Guardian. Mm-hmm. And that planet is holding Princess Astra of Atrios captive because they think that she knows where the location of the final segment of The Key to Time is. She doesn't. Basically, she is the final segment of The Key to Time. The Shadow wants it for himself because, of course, he does. He wants it for the Black Guardian. And the Doctor actually teams up with an old academy mate called Drax, who is a Time Lord, and calls him Theta Sigma, which is his old nickname at college. Not really expounded on. The only good thing about Drax, really, is that he turns up in an audio called The Problem with Drax.
Yeah.
And it's fucking brilliant. Mm-hmm. It's ace. I can't give you any... Ray Brooks plays Drax in it. Mm-hmm. Do you want to be spoiled for it? Do you mind being spoiled for it?
No, I don't. I'm going to listen to it anyway. But...
Spoiler alert for anyone who's not listened to it. So it's got Ray Brooks in it. It's got John Challis, who Boise. It's got Hugh Fraser, Captain Hastings, and the writer of the Rainbow theme tune. And a few other people in it as well, including there's a woman who plays, I can't remember her name, and I am sorry about that. I think it could be Lisa Bowerman. I think it might be Lisa Bowerman who played Bernice Summerfield. And she's a cop who's trying to go after Drax because Drax has stolen something or wants something. And John Leeson's in it as well, as a gangster who Drax is trying to sell something to. Trying to blackmail him. He's trying to get sensitive information. He's trying to blackmail him. And Drax, as Ray Brooks says, my employer wants to see you, Doctor. He says, all right then, no problem. So it turns out that Drax, his employer's henchman, the guy they're trying to sell stuff to, and the lady cop are all incarnations of Drax. Mm-hmm. And they're just trying to con the Doctor into getting something that they want so they can sell it. It's brilliant because you don't see it coming. Because obviously Drax Ray Brooks, he's doing an East End accent. You've got Boise, obviously, he's being Boise at the end of the day. But he's being sort of like a combination of Boise and Scorby. Mm-hmm. And then Hugh Fraser, he's posh, he's Hugh Fraser, so he's doing that whole posh Hugh Fraser thing. So he said, oh yes, I'm at the end of my life now, I fancy being posh for once. Yeah, and including the lady cop. She's Drax as well. So again, anyone who listens to Big Finish probably isn't that bothered that there's a female Time Lord, male to female Time Lord thing, 'cause it's been done in this. Yeah. It's great. It's really funny as well. It's one of those stories that doesn't make a difference to anything. Mm. It doesn't need to. It's just funny. Yeah, recommended. Absolutely recommended. But anyway, Drax is in this. There's a lot of running around. There's a lot of corridors. It's not very interesting. Again, they do find that the key to time is, the final segment is, Princess Astra.
That's the only interesting bit about it.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird as well because it's basically killing a human being.
Yeah.
To become this key to time. The White Guardian, congratulates the Doctor on completing the key to time. There's a great bit as well where the Doctor says, I could control everything and everybody could tell me what to do. He says, what, are you really? He said, no, not really.
There's 10th Doctor there, because he totally would have if he'd been on his own.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course he would. But no, he'd have been Time Lord victorious way before he should have been. But, yeah, he doesn't. The White Guardian comes back and says, give me the key to time. Says, send it to me. And the Doctor's like, hang on a minute. And he says, send it to me! And gets really angry. And then the Doctor says, hang on a minute, you're the Black Guardian, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because he basically, because he doesn't care about Astra being effectively killed. to be the key to time. The White Guardian would have shown compassion and regret for that. The Black Guardian doesn't give a shit. Yeah. So that's how the Doctor works it out. So the Doctor orders the key to redisperse. Astrid comes back to being again, and the Black Guardian gets really angry with the Doctor, threatens to kill him, and the Doctor says, better not get caught, and fits a randomizer to the TARDIS guarding system, so it truly means that they don't know where they're going.
Mm-hmm. Taking it back to the beginning again, where the first Doctor didn't know what the hell he was doing or where he was going.
Yeah, kind of like a soft reboot of it.
Yeah.
Could have done with 2 less episodes on this story, and it wasn't really interesting. The best thing it did was bring Lala Ward into it.
Yeah.
Because she's great.
Yeah. Which is the next story.
Yeah, and that was the end of the Key to Time season, basically. Mary Sam left at the end of the season because she felt that she'd been misled.
Yeah.
She was told that she'd be doing a lot more than she would be doing. I mean, at that point, why would anyone think that? You know, it's quite obvious what the role of a companion is. Even now, the role of a companion is someone who asks the Doctor questions.
Yeah.
You know, they are the kid appeal, as it were. Mm-hmm. I think the top actors these days are a bit more okay with it than they were.
Mm, yeah.
And you kind of know what you're getting into.
Well, we definitely saw that with Bill, mostly. She asked lots and lots of questions. And I think that's how 12 and Bill really worked, because he enjoyed impressing her.
Yeah, it was that grandfather-granddaughter relationship that they clearly had. Mm. Whereas someone like, I don't know, Romana is difficult because Romana knows as much as the Doctor knows. Mm. So I guess I can see in a way where she thought that she might be doing more, but she wasn't, basically. And she didn't. So she left, and Lala Ward, because she'd impressed by playing Princess Astra, they asked her to do it, and she said yes. Mm. There's only one problem, she didn't really get on with Tom Baker at that point. She would eventually.
Yeah, and then they get on again. Yeah.
And now they kind of do.
Good.
Although it's weird, you do little interviews at the end of the Big Finish stuff, you still kind of get the feeling they're not that close.
Yeah.
But I don't think they hold any grudges towards each other. Certainly Tom Baker doesn't. I mean, it's a long time ago since they were married.
Yeah.
Nearly 40 years. And he's a very different person than what he was back then. Mm-hmm. Because he's a lot older, I mean, basically. But yeah, you still get the feeling they maybe aren't that close.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because I want them all to love each other.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So, Destiny of the Daleks.
Yes. Now, funny thing about this season is that Anthony Reid left as script editor and somebody else became script editor. And that somebody was Douglas Adams. Mm-hmm. Which sounds great. The only problem was, he was very shit at deadlines.
Yep.
And he was working on something else at the time, which became a bit more famous and sort of occupied most of his time, I feel. Mm-hmm. This is a little book called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, that tiny little insignificant book.
I don't think it did very well. Yeah, I don't think it did well. It didn't make him any money or anything. It made him richest man in the world. But yeah, as you say, Destiny of the Daleks was the first one. It was written by Terry Nation, and it literally has been completely rewritten by Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
Because apparently Terry Nation did what Terry Nation always does and just sends in the script outline for the Daleks. Like the 1963 one.
Yes.
And it kind of shows because you've got characters called the Mavellans in it, which end up being robots that are fighting the Daleks. Don't get me wrong, the actual conceit of it is brilliant.
Mm-hmm. I really, really love this story.
I really like it.
The thing I don't like about it is Davros. He spoiled it.
I will make it clear that I don't blame David Goodison for this.
Mm.
He's a very good actor.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in some great things. But he ain't Davros.
Yeah.
I mean, they asked Michael Wishaback, but he couldn't come back. He was busy. He was in theatre at the time.
Yeah.
So they got the best person that they had at the time, but they made a good choice by not casting him again and getting Malloy in. But yeah, I mean, the basic conceit of the story is that the Daleks and the Movellans have been in a stalemate for centuries, and the Movellans are just as bad as the Daleks. Even though they're presented initially as good guys, they're not.
Yeah.
They made an appearance, actually, in the first episode of the last series.
Yeah, they did.
Which was great. I'd love to see them again. The old disco robots that they are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they were fabulous with their silver and white and pink.
So late 70s. Oh, and their dreadlocks.
Aberrest.
The braids.
Yeah.
Proper Stevie Wonder silver braid things.
Oh, yeah.
They look like they should be in Chic.
As backing singers for ABBA.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
But yeah, the Daleks are trying to get Davros out of the old Dalek city that they destroyed, so they can have him break the stalemate.
Yes, what was it? Inject some randomisation into everything.
Yeah. Just somebody needs to do something completely random to break the stalemate. Because it's like that thing in war games. Mm-hmm. They can work out before a shot's fired what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which the Doctor doesn't really want to end, because as long as that's going on, there is no war.
Yeah.
Couple of things that are a bit weird. Kind of makes out that the Daleks are robots.
Yeah.
And they're not.
No. I like them being horrible green little blobs with tentacles hiding in a tank.
Yeah, I mean, the Daleks aren't fueled by logic. That's the other thing I sort of take issue with. The Daleks are fueled by emotion, and that's the whole point. Yeah,
they're fueled by hate mostly.
Yeah, it's hyperbole is what they're fueled by. Because any emotion that they have is basically translated as exterminate.
Yeah.
Which they say in The Witch is Familiar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or Magician's Apprentice, I forget which one. But
yeah, when Clara's inside the Dalek.
Yeah. Anything that she says is basically translated as exterminate. Yeah. But, yeah. So there's a lot of weirdness going on. It's a good story. I had it on video as a kid. You can tell that Douglas Adams has had a hand in it, because there's a whole part where the Doctor's trapped under a big, massive piece of concrete. He starts reading Oolong Kalufid's book of the origins of the universe. Now, Oolong Kalufid is from the Hitchhiker's of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Guide to the Galaxy, and the Doctor says, he got it wrong on the first letter, basically. You should have asked somebody who's seen it, which also implies that the Doctor's seen the creation of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Odd. Which in the DC universe, that's actually forbidden. You're not allowed to see that. Mm-hmm. Next up is City of Death, which we will talk about at length at some point. It's brilliant.
The face of Scar.
The Scarath, the last of the Jaggeroth.
Yes.
It's just great. And it's pure Douglas Adams, even though it wasn't really written by him originally. It was David Fisher. It's one of those instances that David Fisher received the script and said, I can't honestly put my name on it.
Yeah.
Because it contains nothing of what I really wrote. It was Douglas Adams and Graham Williams in a weekend, fueled by coffee and whiskey, apparently.
Yeah.
And it's a very clever script. It's all to do with time distortion. It's all to do with paradox and things like that.
Stephen, the Mona Lisa.
And the Mona Lisa, and Duggan. I love Duggan. It's like thumping things. You got the Countess there, Countess Scarleone. You've got Dr. Kerensky, who, if you didn't know Dr. Kerensky, who played him, it's a guy called David Graham, and he basically is responsible for the voices of the Daleks. Mm-hmm. He did the first one. And also, he is Parker and Brains. Mm-hmm. He played Parker. Milady in Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
And bit of a ledge. But Douglas Adams had a knack for getting people off Thunderbirds in his stuff, because the two cops in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the ones who talk about how bad life is.
Yeah.
It's not easy being a cop. Both of those cops, one of them played Scott Tracy and the other one played Virgil. So I think Douglas Adams likes Thunderbirds, because he keeps trying to get people cast. It's also got Eleanor Broad and John Cleese, who wanted to be known as Kim Bread. I don't know why that's so funny as it is, but it's very funny. It's great. We will lay plaudits on City of Death, I'm sure, at some time, but it's one of my favourite Doctor Who stories. Is it one of yours?
Yes. Yeah, I quite like it. I like the way that they've set it in. They actually went to Paris to film it.
Yes, which was rare. I mean, it was the first time they'd filmed abroad for Doctor Who. Next up, this is when it all starts going wrong, basically. It's the creature from the pit.
Yeah, I didn't like this one.
With the creatures with its weird penis that Tom Baker talks about. It's just weird. It's just a bit odd and a bit not great. And yeah, I'm not a fan. Basically, the Doctor, it's all to do with the Doctor going to the jungle world of Chloris, where metal in all forms is prized and rare. And yeah, they have to fight against scavengers, and they have to rescue a ship. And it's just it's a bit of a mess, basically. Yeah. There's no real proper plot to it. It's not great. It was the first serial to be filmed, though, so Lala Moore's performance is a bit off. So everyone says, her performance is a bit off. Well, that's because she didn't really know what she was doing at that point. Mm-hmm. It's got bad monsters in it. It's got bad actors. And K9's voice isn't right, because David Brearley does the voice, because John Leeson went off to do proper acting and stuff.
Yeah.
And so his voice goes from, yes, master, to, oh, yes, master. Oh, I'm doing this, master. It's like, it's not good. Mm. Again, nothing against David Brearley. It's not his fault. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't good. Oddly enough, David Brearley went on to be Jimmy Kemp's father in Threads. Mm-hmm. So Rhys Tyndale character, he went on to be him, which is very, very odd. But yeah, I've seen it a couple of times, Creature from the Pit. It's one of those I can sort of, that fussed about.
Yeah, I'm not keen on this one.
Oh, I will say, if you are collecting Doctor Who stories on DVD now, they're going to make it easier, because they're starting to bring out seasons on DVD and box sets. Mm-hmm. On Blu-ray as well. Mm-hmm. And they're going with the 12th season, so that's one with Reg of the Cybermen, Tom Baker's first season. That's not coming out in June, I think, about 40 quid.
Yeah, I've seen the controversy about that, because they're using the new logo on it.
Yeah, I won't be watching the new logo on my telly, though, will I?
No.
So I don't care. Who cares?
I know.
If they were, it's not like they'd be using the diamond logo on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the things people bitch about on Twitter.
Even if they weren't using the new series one, they'd be using the Pertwee era one, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be that one anyway. So who cares? The artwork on it looks really nice. Mm-hmm. Like I say, I won't be buying it for that. I'll be buying it for the DVD or Blu-rays or whatever. That's what I'm interested in. But there you go. Never mind. Can't please everybody. Next one, you've got Nightmare of Eden, which is Doctor Who's very special episode. Yeah. In as much as this is the drugs episode. And this one, when everybody goes on about Doctor Who getting silly in the Graham Williams era, this is the one they flag up. Mm-hmm. This is the one that they say, this is the story that really got silly. It's all to do with the interstellar cruise ship Empress, which has come out of hyperspace at the same coordinates as the trade ship Hecate, and it causes a dimensional crossover that the Doctor and Romana realise must be repaired. So the Doctor tries to detach the two craft, and it's all basically to do with that. And it turns out the trade ship is carrying a consignment of drugs, or effectively what are drugs. Mm-hmm. And it's all to do with creatures called the mandrills. And it's just not good. The mandrills don't look good.
No.
They look silly. I like their eyes. I like their heads and their eyes and stuff. I think that's very clever.
They look like flares on.
Yeah, they are wearing flares. It's kind of like what Vervoids would become later on. It's all to do with the cruise ship and them killing passengers and...
And then there were no stories.
And yeah, that kind of stuff. And it's Bob Baker wrote it. Mm-hmm. So, loads of concepts and not really well explained. It's not great. And there's a lot of comedy and Tom Baker's cocking about through all of it, basically. Mm-hmm. It's not great. there's a guy called Alan Bromley. He's credited with directing the story, but he actually quit partway through filming as a result of a massive argument with Tom Baker. This is the story that Graham Williams left on. Yeah. Basically, he had to complete the director's work, and the whole thing, he decided that he wanted to leave the series. Mm-hmm. Alan Bromley never directed another story for Doctor Who, and in fact went into full retirement soon afterwards. That's how much of an egomaniac Tom Baker was at this point. He was getting people. I mean, people were firing themselves because of it. Yeah. After this one is a story that I had in Target and thought, this is a great story. And then I saw it and I thought, it's still a great story, but, oh, fuck me, it's bad.
Yeah.
And it's the Horns of Nimon.
I
love the Horns of Nimon. The best thing is, I'll go about that later, but this is the one where Graham Crowden turns up as Soldeed.
Yeah.
And he basically thinks, to hell with this, I'm just chewing all the scenery I can.
This is the one we used to laugh at a lot when Doctor Who fandom was very, very active over on LiveJournal years ago, about 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
This was the one that we always used to take the piss out of.
Absolutely. Well, he deserves it in a way. I mean, I do like it. And again, it's one where the concepts are quite good.
Yes.
But the execution of it
is awful.
It's fucking shit. So you've got this empire called the Scoran Empire. But all of its citizens and soldiers yearn for conquest. They've basically got rose-tinted goggles on. It's kind of like Brexit at the end of the day. Oh, we used to have this great empire. It was brilliant and everybody was fucking great. And it's like, no, we didn't cause death and destruction and everybody hated us. It was great and everybody loved the British and the Scotlands are the same. This alien creature called the Nimon comes back and says, I can bring all this back for you. All you need to do is worship me and give me loads of tributes. Basically, I want to eat loads of people. So they use loads of sacrifices from the nearby planet Aneth, which got us basically bullies, and loads of high messagite crystals, and they're basically all these young people are chucked into this labyrinth where the Nimon gets them. It's basically like Perseus and the Minotaur.
Yeah.
So Doctor Romana and K9 come into this, and it turns out that the Doctor has chosen to materialise a ship close to a manufactured black hole, and basically these Nimon are coming through this black hole and are effectively space locusts, going to planet, promising loads of stuff, basically their heart's desire, getting him to tribute until they are strong enough to come through black holes into our dimension, and then they devastate planets. Mm-hmm. And they have to stop them. But the high priest of the Sconons, which is played by Graham Crowden, the character Soldeed, he's an asshole. Basically. He kind of knows what's going to happen and doesn't care. Just wants to, because he reckons they'll leave Skonos alone and they'll just get every other planet. And it's like, no, they're after you, mate. So he pretends to be a chief scientist, even though he knows nothing about the technology he uses.
Yeah.
He's great. But yes, so they're just kind of like the harvesters in Independence Day. Mm-hmm. Or they just promise. They do it by subterfuge, effectively. I say that the idea is a good one.
Mm-hmm. Based on the Minotaur and the Labyrinth.
Yeah, based on the Minotaur, based on the Labyrinth, based on locusts and that kind of thing. But it's just that the monster looks a bit silly.
You're not kidding there, like.
Yeah, it's just a bloke in a black leotard, or black morph suit, basically. Soldeed is woefully miscast, as much as I love Graham Crowden, I do, but should never have been anywhere near that role. And him and Tom Baker are basically egging each other on, because they were friends.
Yeah.
They were drinking buddies, so they're basically egging each other on to be completely over the top. Not good. Not good at all. But in book form, it's not so bad, because you don't get any of that.
Yeah.
So when you grow up reading the Target novelisation, you think it's great, and then you see it on telly, and it's like, oh, it's not great. The Nimon come back loads of times. A relative of the Nimon comes back in the Gold Complex. Mm-hmm. And the Nimon actually come back in Seasons of Fear, which is an 8th Doctor one, and they're used really effectively. in that. They're very, very good. Big Finish use them a lot better. And I think they come back a couple of other times with the Eighth Doctor as well. So yeah, the Nemon would come back. The last episode of that season, or the last story of that season, was Sharda.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know how that turned out, so we won't really talk about it. That's a thing we should talk about on its own. But as with the stories, you can't really talk about it because it never happened.
Yeah.
As far as that. And that was down to BBC had a massive strike in 1979. And so it was never shown and left unfinished.
Yeah, they never completed it. How many episodes? 2 episodes they did?
Yeah, I think they did 2 episodes. And they did finish it. It was what ended up being a 4th one. It's a 6th version. So they restored it in 1992 with linking information by Tom Baker. And then they did a version with the 8th Doctor, which was pretty good. And then they did a book of it by Gareth Roberts.
Yeah.
And then they brought it out with animation, which I haven't seen yet, so I can't really comment on it. But apparently it's quite good. But it's with as much of the original cast as they could do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's gone down in legend as Sharda. It was a Douglas Adams penned episode as well. I really liked the Paul McGann version that they did, personally, because it had Andrew Sachs's Skagra as well, which was pretty good. And it had the guy who played, I can't remember, is it Diggory? Not Cedric Diggory. It's the other guy. That Pattinson Cedric Diggory. Anyway, he's the other guy who plays Quidditch in the first Harry Potter film, the Scottish lad. He played one of the other characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was okay. It was fine.
Bigger stuff.
Yeah, it'll do. But the last season of Tom Baker was season 18, and it was all change from there on in. It was JNT took over as the producer, and the new script editor in Christopher H Bidmead, who I don't really like, because I feel that he wanted to turn Doctor Who into something it wasn't. Basically, Chris Bidmead, he's a respected journalist. He's a New Scientist contributor, and he's a proper science writer. Yeah. He kind of got the idea that Doctor Who and JT got this idea. It should be proper science.
Doctor Who isn't proper science. That's what
I
explain to people over and over. It's a fantasy.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like Star Trek. It's pseudoscience.
Everyone wants it to be like Babylon 5, and it's not.
Babylon 5 shite anyway. I hate Babylon 5. But yeah, they wanted to bring these heavy scientific concepts to it, and it's just not Doctor Who. And if you actually look at the season itself, none of that made it into the show anyway.
Yeah. Absolutely
none of it made it into the... And Chris Bidmead can say all he wants that it did, and we tackled some really deep scientific issues. No, you didn't. So you've got the first episode in there. Oh, the other thing is that this is where the fucking costume makes an appearance as well.
Yeah.
So John Nathan Turner, because he wanted to sell the series more in America, missed the point of everything and said, instead of just wearing clothes, you've got to wear a costume. So he gave Tom Baker this maroon costume.
Yeah.
With a cream shirt and fucking question marks on the lapels.
Yeah, it went Star Trek.
Yeah, basically. And gave Tom Baker this maroon and purple scarf, which he hated. And he hated everything. This was the season where Tom Baker said, do you know what? I've had enough.
Yeah.
And he left. And everybody breathed a collective sigh of relief because they all wanted him to go. Not lying at all. If you watch anything to do with it, if you get the Cash and Fowler box set, you will find there's a couple of documentaries in there which they said, yeah, we're kind of glad that he went. And he basically things got so bad he never talked to JNT ever again. And that's the reason he's not in the Five Doctors. They can say, oh, he didn't want to be typecast, all he was. The real reason he didn't want to be in it. And he did, to be fair, try and screw JNT over on this one. He said he was going to be in it up until the very last minute and said, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And he did that on purpose, just to spite JNT, which is a bit of a dick move, but I don't, for 1 second, knowing what I know about JNT, don't think that it probably wasn't deserved. They were both as bad as each other.
But nobody liked those question marks.
No. Davison hated them.
So did McCoy. He went off his rocker with about that bloody jumper.
Whereas Colin Baker, I think, had better shit to deal with than question marks. He didn't like anything about the costume. It's just a shame because I really like it, but there you go. Anyway, the season starts off with the Leisure Hive, which is, it's a funny-ish story. It's all to do with tachyons and time, but that really, again, is pseudo fantasy science. It's not real, and it's got very little to do with the actual episode. It's all to do with two civilizations that had a massive war that lasted 20-odd seconds.
Yeah.
And that one of them wants to make friends with the other one, only a crime family wants to destroy them, and somebody wants to bring back former glories of the empire that was. Mm-hmm. And that guy is that dude out of fucking Thin Blue Line who said piggin a lot. And was the guy in 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
David Haig.
He was fucking Sophie Thompson.
I like him as an actor.
He's alright, but he's very young in this. He's super, super young. Don't get me wrong, it's a good story. It was David Fisher again, so David Fisher usually turned in pretty good stuff. The Faux Massey were probably the best thing out of that story. I quite like Anagram and Mafioso, apparently. Mm-hmm. I quite like the Leisure Hive. What do you think of the Leisure Hive?
It's alright.
It's just a standard story, isn't it, really? It's.
Yeah.
And this is where you sort of get the feeling they're going to write K9 out because they destroy him basically straight away.
Yeah.
For some reason, he just goes straight in the water at Brighton and blows himself up.
Yeah.
The next story is one of the stories I hate most in Doctor Who.
A funny story, but this is the story that... I've got a friend, Laurie, who lives in Canada. And this was the story that turned her off from watching Doctor Who ever.
Oh, wow.
Because Cactus Tom Baker.
Oh, yeah, she couldn't... Yeah, I've seen her on Facebook. She just can't watch it because of Cactus Tom Baker. Even though you can actually see where the latex is on his face. Mm. But yeah, Meglos, which is all to do with Zolfathura and plants, and a plant called Meglos that wants to rule the universe, and daft mercenaries that are almost as bad as the Bannermen. Almost as bad as the Bannermen.
Yeah.
Not quite that bad. Again, I had the book of this and thought, oh, this is quite good. Then I saw it and thought, oh, no, it isn't. It's just rubbish. It's a carryover from Graham Williams' time, and you can kind of tell.
Yeah, Seeds of Doom.
Yeah. It's kind of a children's version of Seeds of Doom, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's most notable because Jacqueline Hill's in it, who played Barbara.
Yeah.
And it was the last thing she ever had to do with Doctor Who.
Mm.
I think she died not long after. I can't remember. When did Jacqueline Hill die? 93, yeah, so alright, it was a little while after that, but, yeah. Wasn't great. Meglos is a load of shit. Terence Dudley, sadly, I think he didn't write it, but he did have, episodes like Black Orchid to deal with, and I think he wrote Black Orchid. Now, I like Black Orchid, but a lot of people don't. So it seems that he's actually one of the most unpopular directors on Doctor Who. Which is a shame.
This episode's where the process of Romana leaving starts.
Yeah, this is where it kind of starts. You've got the next 3 episodes are all clubbed together into what they call the E-Space Trilogy. Yeah. So you've got Full Circle, State of Decay, Warrior's Gate. And their basic premise is that the TARDIS goes through a time fissure into a pocket dimension called E-Space, which is smaller than our space, and green. Slightly tinted green for some reason. So he starts off with the story Full Circle, which is written by a guy called Andrew Smith, who was at that time the youngest person ever to contribute to the series. He's a fan, basically. He sent a script in, and John Nathan Turner said, "Oh, well, I like this." Yeah. Clearly looking to get laid.
Yeah. I like this story.
I actually really like the E-Space trilogy as a whole. It does sadly introduce us to Adric, who is just as annoying in this as he is in everything else.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for Matt. I hold no malice towards Matthew Waterhouse. I'll make that clear. I like the guy.
Just the character.
He wasn't an actor.
Mm.
So he wasn't a very experienced actor. Given time, he could have been. But yeah, the character's an asshole.
Yeah.
Adric is not a very nice character. But I will say, Full Circle... Oh, sorry.
was trying to say, he thinks he's as good as the Doctor just because he's got a maths badge.
Yeah, he's got a fucking badge which he puts on everything. His badge for mathematical excellence, and it's just annoying. But it's a really interesting concept. Is full circle is the fact that life just keeps repeating itself on the planet.
Yeah.
It's also to do with like vivisection and anti-vivisection and things like that as well. From a kid who was about 18 when he wrote it, I think he did very, very well, did Andrew Smith. He's come back as well and done some Big Finish stories as well. He's still writing Doctor Who, Andrew Smith. He ended up being a copper, I think. Mm. He ended up being a policeman, but it's all to do with that, and it's got George Baker, who I like George Baker because he's Inspector Wexford. I like the idea. It's all to do with, it's a bit like Face of Evil, where you've got a society based on, not lies, but a society based on archaic information and keep fixing the ship. One day we'll fix the ship, even though the guys at the top know full well they can't fix the ship. Mm-hmm. But if you say you can't fix a ship, the society will collapse. Mm-hmm. I like it. I just don't know. I like it. I mean, what do you like about Full Circle?
Well, life continues. The marsh men and the marsh spiders are actually unevolved versions of the humanoid group.
Yeah, it just keeps repeating.
Mm-hmm.
It is good. I do like that. And then they move on to State of Decay.
Yeah.
Which is just a vampire tale that Terrence Dicks tried selling him a few seasons before, but wasn't able to do it because the BBC had a proper version of Dracula at the time.
Yeah. Lana looks very Hammer horror-y in this one.
It is basically Hammer horror, isn't it? And it's all, again, that's to do with something I love, which is the degradation of language. Mm-hmm. So you've got 3 pilots who crash land on a planet in E-space. They get killed and resurrected by the Great Vampire, who's an old enemy of the Time Lords. And their names go from, it says it here, is it Sharkey, Macmillan and O'Connor. They become Zargo, Camilla and Orcon. Uh-huh. Because it's a whole degradation of language over time sort of thing. And they become vampires who were trying to, again, build up the Great Vampire so he can burst out of his shell and escape back into normal space and take on the Time Lords again. It's great. It's proper Ingrid Pitt, Hammer horror vampire stuff. And I used to have the book as well. I used to have the book in the library, the school library. It was great. It turns out the Doctor's frightened of vampires as well.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. It's nothing special. It doesn't break new ground or anything. It's a standard Doctor Who story, but I really like it.
It's kind of very dark. Both Adric and Romana are threatened with murder.
Yeah. It's got Clinton Grain in it as well, who's one of my favourite bad actors. He plays Ivo, the head man of the village. It's also, I can't remember his name, is it Arthur Hewlett, the old fella? Who played, what did he play? Kalmar. So he was the old fella with the weird comb over. And he was in loads of things. And he always played old duffers. But this is actually quite cool. Plus there's loads of BBC micros in there as well, which is great. The next one is the weirdest Doctor Who story.
Yeah,
I quite like Warriors Gate. It's weird and it's conceptual and it's, I don't know, it's like the Salvador Dali story of Doctor Who.
Yeah, it is weird.
It's the closest thing to sort of a proper science fiction one that you could get. Mm. And there's no point even going into the plot because he hasn't really got a plot.
It's just mostly about repairing robots constantly over and over, isn't it?
Yeah, it's... I'm trying to think if there was a modern show that... I kind of like it's not like Black Mirror, but it's one of those high concept sci-fi shows. Kind of like something like a Darren Aronofsky film.
Yeah. And they took out all the comedy lines out of it and just played it completely straight.
Yeah, it's weird because at that point you're used to the Fourth Doctor being happy and smiley, and there's no happy, smiley Doctor in this one.
No, he's suddenly gone grim.
Yeah, and that's sort of the theme for the rest of the series, basically, for Tom Baker. He's proper grim in every single one after this. And that's the one where K9 and Romana leave as well.
Yeah, they stay behind.
And the problem is Stephen Gallagher fell out with John Nathan Turner and left halfway through the show.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote it. And as did Paul Joyce, the director. He got fired, basically. Nobody says it explicitly, but it's quite obviously got fired. And that's where Graham Harper is one of the first shows he actually properly directed.
Yeah.
He would be back to do lots more. I love Graham Harper. He's great. So after Warrior's Gate, there's only two more Tom Baker stories. The Keeper of Traken and Logopolis. The Keeper of Traken is the first one with the Doctor and Adric on their own.
Yeah. And then Nissa.
And they pick up Nissa, although they weren't planned to.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't meant to be a companion at the end of it. It's just that Sarah Sutton impressed them so much. It's also a master story as well. They come back into normal space. They visit a planet called Traken. And it turns out there's stuff going on.
This is the first story I can ever remember of Doctor Who.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I can remember Melkur.
Yes.
That's the statue. Who isn't a statue.
Painted on eyes.
Yeah. It's really weird. But it's all to do with a power source being corrupted by the Master, who is corrupting the woman who is probably going to take over the power source that keeps the whole Traken Union, the Empire of Traken, in check. And it's basically like a utopia.
Yeah.
Everyone's a bit cocky.
Yes, and anything that's evil that comes to the planet gets calcified.
Yeah. Hence the Master's TARDIS being calcified.
Yeah.
But the Master, this is the first appearance of the wonderful Geoffrey Beevers as the Master.
Yeah.
Who would go on, wouldn't play the Master again in the show.
But he does.
But would go on to be one of the definitive Masters of Big Finish.
Yeah.
I think that's great. You've got two definitive Big Finish Masters that a lot of people say should get another shot. Beevers, well, I think maybe at this point he's a bit too old.
Yeah.
And Alex McQueen, who I would love to see in the show, because I love Alex McQueen. He's brilliant, because he plays so many different roles that you just don't know about. Because it's like, he was in the thick of it as a sort of conniving member of the House of Lords. He's the Master. He's that dude's dad in the In-Betweeners, the one that they all say is gay.
Yeah.
It's just like, he plays so many different roles, and yet he stays pretty much the same. You know, but as a Master, he's proper evil. It's the same with Beevers. Beevers is he's not like Delgado, because Delgado was sort of suave and charismatic, and Beevers is sort of smooth.
Mm-hmm.
He's smoothly evil, but he's sort of slimy as well. Yeah. And he plays the corpse part really, really well. But yeah, Sarah Sutton really impressed John Nathan Turner in this, and they actually said, do you want to come back permanently and be a companion? Because at that point they kind of knew that, well, they definitely did know that Davison was coming in and they wanted a full crew behind him, and they just said, do you want to do it? And she said yes. And that's how we get Nissa, who's one of my favourite companions.
Yeah. And then also, this story introduces Anthony Ainley.
It does, who plays her dad, Treymas, which is an anagram of Master, which get used to that. If anybody in the John Nathan Turner era get used to everything being a fucking anagram or a hint to the Master. My favourite is Neil Toynay, just so everybody knows. We'll come to that next time. But yes, at the end of it, and it's never really explained in the show, it's the power of Traken does it, but the Master inhabits Anthony Ainley's body.
Yeah, he just takes over our father's body.
Yeah, it's never, like I say, it's all to do with Traken's power, but it's never, it's just, yeah, it is because we say it is. Mm-hmm. Which is, I guess, fair enough, isn't it? But there you go. Yeah, I really like the Keeper of Traken. Although Tom Baker, again, is completely fucking grim in it.
Yeah.
It's written by Johnny Byrne, who never really wrote for Doctor Who. He was most famous for writing loads of episodes of All Creatures Great and Small. Mm-hmm. Which is foreshadowing, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the last episode is Logopolis,
Yeah.
written by Christopher H Bidmead himself. This episode makes no fucking sense.
No, it's weird.
None of it makes sense. Absolutely, not just the bits on Logopolis, but all the, I'm the Doctor. I want to sort out my TARDIS. So I'm going to measure a real police box. What? That doesn't make sense. What?
Doesn't.
Just fix the chameleon circuit. Alright then, I won't do that. I'll just measure the TARDIS. And I'll materialise around the TARDIS, which is actually the Master's TARDIS. And then you get lots of weird recursion, so they keep going further and further into the TARDISes.
Yeah.
And then the Doctor realises that the Master's in the TARDIS, and I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll materialise in the Thames and we'll flush him out. What that flush us out, don't worry about it, it's fine. And then they don't materialise in the Thames, they materialise on a barge. And this woman called Tegan keeps going around, and her auntie gets killed by the Master for no reason.
Yeah, I know. This was the. This is where they turned the Master from being benevolently evil to just out and out psychotic.
Yeah, he's a psycho. They're going on about John Smith's Master being a psychotic, but I think it's Anthony Ainley just wants destruction for destruction's sake.
Yeah.
For some reason. It's never really explained. And again, he gets a costume. He gets a uniform.
Yes, he gets the black velvet with the high collar.
Yeah, I never really liked that. I like the one he wore in Survival. Criminal waste, I always feel, Anthony Ainley's Master. Because he was a really good actor as well. Like, super good.
I've never seen him in anything else.
He's in a few films, like Hammer Horror stuff, and he's in a few American films as well. He's quite good. He's a really good actor, and he could. The problem is that I think that JNT just wanted Roger Delgado Part 2.
Yes.
Rather than saying to him, do what you want with the role because you know best. You're an actor. You're a good actor, like he did in Survival.
Yeah.
And to be fair to him, he was really loyal to the show as well with Anthony Ainley. But yeah, you got all those weird inconsistencies, and then he takes the TARDIS off to Logopolis for some reason. That's never really explained. And then Logopolis is just a planet filled with Noel Edmonds clones. Who just sit there and go, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 7, 7, 9, 2, 9, 4. It's like, it's the world's biggest computer. No, it isn't. It keeps reality in check. No, it doesn't. What are the Time Lords doing then? So,
hats.
again, it makes the Master look like a complete idiot because he starts killing Logopolitans, and that destroys Logopolis, and that's going to destroy the whole universe. And it's just because it's all, again, it's Bidmead saying, "Look, science." It's not science. None of it is science.
It makes sense. None of the science behind it that he wrote made any sense whatsoever.
It's just pseudoscience bollocks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know the show's not supposed to make too much sense, but that took it too far.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the same in Cast Revolver, which we'll talk about next time.
Oh, Cast Revolver kind of makes sense. Ish. It's all to do with recursion and things like that. It's fine. I have no problem with that so much. That's based on an M.C. Escher painting anyway, so it's not, it's not science as such. But yeah, Logopolis ends with the Master trying to take over what's left of the universe after Traken and all that get destroyed in E-space. And it's all to do with using a radio telescope to control the universe. It does get one of the best lines, "Peoples of the universe, put his head carefully."
Yeah.
I may be seated.
And again, he goes around killing people with his dildo.
Yeah, he just goes around shooting, and until the Doctor tells him not to because they have to team up. And there's this guy called the Watcher watching all the time, and the Doctor sort of goes really, really grim, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die. And he does die in a really horrible way as well.
Yeah, he falls off the top of the telescope.
Yeah, and he always looked to me like his hips were facing the wrong way when he died.
How come the 10th Doctor didn't die when he fell from space?
It's a good plan. He did. Oddly enough, though, he does retain the vertigo in the acrophobia, because when he's up Ali Pali, they do make an allusion to that and say that he doesn't like heights.
But at the end of time, he jumps out of the bloody spaceship and he doesn't die.
Yeah, well, he uses his solid screwdriver or something. You know, I think by that point he knows he's dying or something's going to happen, but so I think he doesn't care. But yeah, he doesn't die, and he should do. But he certainly does from Legopolis.
Yeah.
And he gets a regeneration sequence that's been copied, certainly copied by the 12th Doctor.
Yes.
The whole Doctor, you will die for this, Doctor. That was all copied in
Sixth Doctor's regeneration.
Yeah, the 5th, the 6th, and more likely the 12th as well. That was really, really copied, was that bit. But then, 12th Doctor was a bit Tom Bakery anyway, wasn't he? So, and then he has the best, I think, the best regeneration words ever. It says, "It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for." And then Adric ruins it by talking. Oh, which was the Doctor all along? Yeah, we know, we get it. And then he wakes up, and then 6 months later he came back with longer hair. Because they refilmed it, didn't they? So, yeah, and that was the end of the Doctor. Oh, it was sad when he regenerated.
Yeah, it's always sad when they regenerate. But then again, because it's a new Doctor, new adventures.
Yeah.
Well, supposedly.
Yeah, I mean, the only bad thing about, we'll talk about it mainly, is the only bad thing about this regeneration is that it set the trend that JNT loved, which it's got to go wrong somehow.
Yeah.
It's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Kind of why I like the 11th Hour so much, because nothing really bad happens to him.
Yes, that's true, but
He just gets on with it.
yeah, that's the only one that really does just get on with it.
Yeah, although I don't know. 7 kind of does. Yeah, 7 kind of does just get on with it. It's the Rani pumps him full of drugs, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And he's got that whole mixed metaphor, bloody Count Arthur Strong thing going on, but that was supposed to be his thing, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Which I fucking hated. It took a whole season to stop it as well.
Then the 12th Doctor ended up in bed for quite a few hours as well, and then went on the streets as a bloody vagrant.
Yeah. I mean, the ones that didn't sort of have much of a thing was 2, he didn't, 4 didn't, 5 did, 6 did, 7 didn't, 8 definitely did, but that was their fault, not his.
Yeah.
9, we will never know. 10, yeah, he was out for the whole Christmas episode.
I think 9's was alright because
He just needed tea.
yeah, he just wanted to regenerate, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, he wanted to, but we'll never know, will we? This is the thing. 10, obviously he just needed a cup of tea. Tea, that's all I needed. Cup of tea. 11 just had a whole fucking adventure. It was ace. I love the 11th Hour. It's probably my favourite post-regeneration story.
Yes, definitely. Mine too.
If only for the line, "Blimey! Get a girlfriend, Jeff."
That might be a Scottish fry something.
Yeah. No, it's just that whole thing where it's just give me a laptop, Jeff, and Jeff's like, no. Blimey! Get a girlfriend, Jeff.
Oh God, that caused a lot of arguments on Twitter as well. Why assume Jeff's straight?
Because he was, well, we're assuming it, because Jeff was obviously looking at girl porn. He could be bisexual, but I'm guessing he isn't. No, anyway, he would be, because he's after Amy, wasn't he? They kind of established that, but, no, that's definitely my favourite post-regeneration story. Because it's just fucking ace. Castrovaldo's probably my second favourite, oddly enough, but we'll talk about that next time. So, how would you, if it can be summarised, or how do you say you feel about the 4th Doctor era?
Lots of ups and downs, because it went on a bit too long. Yeah, as much as everybody wants the Doctor to stay forever and ever and ever, really they can't.
No, I mean, would you say that sort of 3 years is probably
3 to
the
4
optimum time?
Yeah, 3 to 4 years, yeah.
Because you always do have that spectre hanging over you where people say, I hope they stay for longer. I mean, it certainly happened to Colin Baker, didn't it? I'm going to stay for longer than 7. And he was there for like 2.
Yeah.
And no doctor since has sort of said anything, and it tends to be 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen loads of people on Twitter saying, I hope Jodie stays for 7. She's definitely going to stay for longer than 3. And I'm like, she really isn't.
No.
Because she got the shit to do, frankly. Especially, and I'm not being nasty, and I'm not being horrible. She's, 38 now? 37, 38? That makes her 41 in 3 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
The roles will start drying up for that kind of age around that time.
Yeah, they definitely do for women.
Yeah, absolutely they do. Because you go from being the lead character in something to being...
somebody's mother.
Somebody's mum, exactly.
Actually, there was some I can't remember what American program it was, but a film, but the lead, the oldest actor was 35, and she was playing the mother of the 25-year-old woman.
Well, what is it now that's mental? It's Mamma Mia 2. Cher is playing Meryl Streep's mother.
Yes, they're about the same age, aren't they?
About the same fucking age. What is mental? But yeah, it's the same in things like pornography. Sorry to bring pornography into this, but at the age of about 35, you're classed as a MILF.
Yeah.
Or mature.
Yeah. It happened in North by Northwest. The woman who plays Cary Grant's mother in that was the same age as Cary Grant.
Yeah. And, it's still as true today as it was back then, sadly. It's just the way it is, I'm afraid. So, realistically, plus 3 years is a long time to ask an actor to stay in the same role.
Yeah.
I just hope she doesn't feel pressured to stay. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, I don't want her to stay longer than she should because she's the first woman, or she's a woman and she should, and representation matters. Because if it matters that much, then we should just be saying, well, she should be the same as any other actor in the role.
Yeah. Or just recast another woman.
Or, do you know what? I don't think that'll happen. I think it'll be a black guy. Mm-hmm. Be a black or Asian actor next. I think. And then it'll go back to being a white guy.
Yeah.
I think. Or it might be a white guy. It depends who's around.
Yeah.
If there's no... at the end of the day, I don't want them casting just because...
Yeah.
Ticking boxes.
Yeah.
Because that's going to kill the show.
Yeah.
But we'll obviously see. But yeah, I think Tom Baker stayed way too long than he should have done. He was bored, and you could tell he was bored. I think in that last season, he stopped being bored.
Yeah. Well,
and you actually got some good performances out of him in the last sort of 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, because those stories were completely different to what he'd done before. Because by the time I came up to just before JNT, all the stories were really odd and weird and really not all that good.
Kind of dark and gritty.
Yeah.
Almost. Anyway, next time we shall be talking about first season for the 5th Doctor, played by Peter Davison. Same producer, different script editor, because you had Eric Sayward, because Bidmead went. So you have the start of the Sayward area, which would last a few years.
Yeah.
And would get increasingly more violent and dark and gritty, and have a lot more Cybermen in it. A lot of Cybermen in it. But until then, thank you, Leigh, for being with us as always and co-hosting this stuff with me. Been a bit of a long one, but there's a lot to get through.
Yeah.
To be fair. If anybody wanted to find you on the old wide world of the interweb, Leigh, where was the best place that they could do that?
Twitter. Leigh fits in.
There we go. Excellent stuff. If you want to find me personally on Twitter, it's going to be at Cymru Nerd Cave and Glenn Jakeman on Facebook. If you want to find us on Facebook, it's /Nerva Beacon Podcast. And on Twitter, it's at Nerva Beacon Pod. Do try and put links up every day if we can. But obviously stick with us on that one. Leigh, say bye-bye to the lovely people.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. When we come back, it'll be all beige.
Yeah, it's the beige.
And be quite a lot of fanfic. of the wrong kind. Bye bye for now, everybody.
Bye.